Couldn't make it.
Paul can't make it?
I thought he emailed that he couldn't make it tonight.
Okay, thank you. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
he did. He did. He asked if you and I could present the ADU letter.
Okay, thank you for that info. So we are recording.
Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is the first meeting of 2022. And I just want to welcome everybody. I remember when it was the year 2000, Y2K, and everybody thought the world was going to end. Seems like yesterday that we were in a different century, but it's 22 years later and here we are. So away we go. Craziness. So I want to give everybody the warning up front. We are recording this meeting, and so everything you say will be recorded. And consistent with our policy, we'll be posting a recording of the meeting when it comes to a conclusion. So I'll make sure everybody has a full and fair warning of the recording. So with that, I'm going to go with our new plan of taking attendance before we get started, make sure we have a quorum. So I'll go down my list of board members and just say, answer here if you're here. Margaret? Here, I see your hand. Brad? Can you raise your hand or say yes? You're here, Brad? I see you.
We see him.
You must be having audio trouble.
All right, well, I'm going to count him as here because I can see him. Corla, you're Corla?
Yeah.
Mandy?
Here.
Eva?
Here.
Don? I see you here. All right. Robert Tripp Jackson. Do not see Robert.
He's
Angela?
registered.
Here.
Tina?
Here.
Nicole?
Here.
Matt?
Here.
Joe?
Here.
Sam? Do not see Sam yet.
Sam is also registered.
Okay. And Paul Webb is not here. So I've got 3 missing. So we have 12 out of 15. That is a quorum. So we're good to go. All right. So first thing we need to do is approve the agenda. Everybody's seen the agenda. Does anybody have any questions, or can somebody make a motion to approve the agenda and we can move forward?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we've got a motion by Angela and a second by Margaret. All those in favor, raise your hand. It passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Approval of the minutes from our November meeting. I read those. It looked like Mandy did her usual spectacular job. Does anybody have any questions, or Mandy, do you want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
We got a second. Tina, your hand was first. All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please let me know.
Aye.
All right. Hold on one second. I don't know, sorry. I do have some people that potentially could need my help, so but that wasn't them, so good. All right, so with that, we'll do the board officer reports. And so as president, I mean, I think the our planning board is really healthy and we're doing great. We got great participation from everybody. We got a lot of important issues, some of which we're going to start to address tonight, such as the future of planning boards. We've got an election coming up, ADUs, and all of that. So I really appreciate everybody's participation. There's going to be some changes in 2022, I think, and some issues that we're going to have to address. So we look forward to working together with everybody on that. And we can have some, hopefully we can have a little fun doing that too. I mean, with the way COVID is, I don't foresee us meeting in person for the foreseeable future. We'll only do it when it's safe. And everybody's health and safety is my #1 priority. And so we'll just hang tight on Zoom until we get to that. So the other big news is I have completed my tour of duty on the San Diego City Redistricting Commission. So we are done.
Woohoo! Good
Yeah.
job.
We had our final meeting today. The map has been certified. The 30 days has run since we certified it in December. The map is final. There were no challenges to it. So everything is moving forward. And I voted at about 4:20 this afternoon, 4:15 this afternoon, as part of a unanimous vote of the commission to disband itself. So I'll have more free time now to bug people.
Right.
But it's been a pleasure to serve the community. And I'll just say, I mean, I think it was important to get two districts that have large representation, because I could tell from our dealings with the city, and I could tell from the dealings of people regarding the redistricting commission, there's a lot of other communities that do not care about the issues that affect the beach communities, and we have a lot of issues that impact us. They're important, and I'd like, and ADUs is one of them, vacation rentals, those kind of things. And so I think it's important that we have adequate representation at the city council level. So with that, that's my report. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Margaret, first vice chair, any report?
Yeah, I just want to report that I've been trying to go to a lot of the different neighboring group meetings, OB, town council, OB, planning board meeting, had a meeting last night on some projects they've got with project review. I attended yesterday's Midway planning board meeting, which was extremely interesting. I mean, they've got so much going on that I continue to, most importantly, when I attend these meetings, have the chairs or board members attend our meetings. I really want to work hard this year with all of your help to really get more people to attend these types of meetings. So we're all kind of working universally together to address some of the same issues. A lot of us are, we go from OB to Midway to Point Loma. We shop, we play, we live, breathe at these communities pretty frequently. And it is important to understand what's going on in these communities. I was pretty taken back yesterday with Midway's group and the amount of issues they're going through. The struggle's pretty real in that area. And I know if you frequent that area, you can kind of see for yourself that they've got a lot going on, not just developments coming their way, but a big homeless issue, a lot of crime going on, and it's really impacting a lot of people. So, the chair yesterday, Kathy, I invited her to speak today. Hopefully she can speak a little bit later at this meeting. I know she was going to try to get on, or DK. I do see that DK is here, but it's important. It's important just overall to work together. I've been it's really touching me hard that it's not just sitting on the Peninsula Community Planning Board and approving projects and thinking about our own community. It's actually helping others. I know you're all volunteers on this board, and there's a lot of opportunities you can help. First is attending the meetings. Second, I think I sent you all an email in regards to all the positions opening up within the city too. A lot of different groups and committees. I know Fred, you're on the redistricting committee, and there's a few other real interesting ones that you can be a part of. So just keep that in mind. I can resend the email again with all those positions, but just get in there, get involved, talk to your neighbors, bring it back to not only our group, but some of the other groups that need our TLC love and support. So I encourage you all to get more involved, not just in our group, and it's a real rewarding experience to hear other neighbors speak. So thank you. You're all doing an amazing job, and I appreciate working with each and every one of you.
Thank you, Margaret. Sam, I see that you've arrived, so I've marked you down as present now.
Also, Fred, I think in chat, Matt had a revision to the meeting minutes.
Yeah, I responded to that and said that I think that Mandy can make that revision.
Yes, Matt, can you email that to me? I'm having an issue transferring that to my notes. So if you could email that to me, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
Thank
just a
you.
cleanup change. Cleanup change, I think there's no problem. Brad, do you second vice chair, you got any report you want to give?
I don't have a report, but I did want to thank Margaret for all of her emails and all of her effort that she's putting forth for the community. I appreciate it very much. And Corla also is daily updates. So thank you both for all your hard work.
Yes, we all appreciate it. We all appreciate both of them. Mandy, secretary report.
I would just like to second that as well. I do appreciate being in the know with all that's going on here on the peninsula. So thank you, Corla, and thank you, Margaret, for your due diligence and letting us keep in the know on what's going on around the community. Thank you. But nothing to report, just a friendly reminder that I will require that a motion slip be received if you do or have submitted a motion during this meeting. If you can complete the form and email it to me, that would be greatly appreciated. Those are required so that we stay in good standing as a community planning group. So thank you all for that.
All right, thank you, Mandy. And Corla, as treasurer, since the city wants to cut off our funds, right? We've got to find out if we have any money and how long it's going to last.
Yeah, well, there's been no activity and we do have money in our accounts and we will be getting in the end of the fiscal year, we will be getting our stipend for this last year. So we're in good standing for a little while. So keep our fingers crossed and see what happens.
Don, you got a question?
Yeah, how much is in our treasury?
Give me a few minutes, go move on and I'll get it. I had a lot of last minute things and I didn't pull it up. So give
Thank
me a
you.
Okay. Okay, I think that takes care of officer reports. So we are now at a non-agenda public comment. So does anybody want to make a non-agenda public comment? I see Mandy's hand. How about Mandy?
All right. Good evening, everyone. The rumors are true. My name's Mandy and I want to announce that I'm running for San Diego City Council District 2. I'm a land use advocate, environmental activist, a mother of two, and a military spouse. I have fought to keep the coastal height limit and opposed Measure E due to the concern over environmental impacts to the community regarding projected sea level rise and the history of the topography of Midway. I will fight to ensure that the beach and coastal communities remain accessible to all, not just a privileged few. I opposed SB 9 and SB 10 and the ADU proposition due to the unregulated densification it will bring to communities with no plans for transit, infrastructure, and environmental impacts. I have also advocated for the conservation of wetlands through my position with the Save Mimosa Canyon Group. We need to see more action and accountability in addressing the climate crisis, starting with protecting the existing trees and natural spaces. In 2019, San Diego removed more trees than it planted. We will not achieve our climate action goals without environmentally sustainable policies. We have a serious park deficit in District 2. I view the Midway area as an opportunity to address some of this deficit and achieve affordable housing while maintaining the 30-foot height limit. As an Indigenous woman, land use is very near and dear to my heart. I have long been an advocate for a safer and more inclusive District 2. We need someone who's not going to just talk about it, but be about it when it comes to community issues. I can and I will represent the needs of my constituents while advocating for a more accountable, transparent, and connected city council. We need a fresh new perspective for D2. We deserve a representative who listens and cares, someone who's committed to the community and not sold out to corporate interest. I intend to bring the community back to City Hall with more transparency and leadership. I want to partner with the local community groups and community leaders to find and bring forth common sense solutions to the community with policy that works for everyone and progresses our city toward a brighter, more inclusive and equitable future. I'm not going to call you names or ignore you. I'm going to call you back. You can reach me anytime at 619-535-9411 or via email at mandyfordistrict2@gmail.com. My website, mandyhavlick.com, will be going live within the next week or so in preparation for my official campaign press release announcement on February 3rd, followed by my first rally where it all started at Mimosa Canyon on Saturday, February 5th at 11 o'clock. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mandy. That's very exciting news. We all wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Fred.
All right, Margaret, do you think you can follow that? Go ahead. You're up.
Heck no! Congrats, Mandy, on your new adventure. I'm really proud of you. That's awesome.
Well, thank you. It all started with you too. So thank you for
No, don't
encouraging
say
me to
that,
get
please.
involved.
We're recording. I noticed Kathy's here. Yay, Kathy from Midway made it. So we're good. I just want to remind you, Fred, if we can move her to the top of the government reports. And then real quickly, as most of you know, I'm a Point Loma Rotarian. Woohoo! And I am on the budget committee this year. And one thing about the Point Loma Rotary Club is that they're really philanthropic and giving, and it's pretty amazing. So with that said, we're looking for local charities, organizations, anyone you can think of that needs some support. We're trying to switch it up and look for some new groups. It can be in San Diego, but we really want to hone in on, Ocean Beach, Point Loma, Midway, and kind of support our own, district first. If there's any groups out there that you can think of that can use some funding, it could be school groups, anything. Please email me directly and I will submit that group in. Budgets, I think the deadline is in 2 weeks. So kind of last minute, but if you've got a group, please send them over to me and I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Margaret. Matt, go ahead.
Hi, thanks, Fred. Just want to start off with another land acknowledgement, just to reiterate that as a board convened to make land use decisions, we are operating this on what are the traditional lands, the ancestral lands of the Kumeyaay tribe. And then I also want to bring up one other point. Some of y'all may have heard about the pedestrian fatality. A couple was crossing over by Pizza Nova across Harbor, or maybe it was Nimitz, around Harbor Nimitz. And they were struck by a car and fatally injured last night. And so I just want to put it out, a lot of what we do in the Transportation and Traffic Committee is talk about ways to try to make our roads safer for all road users. And I just want to elevate that as a high priority. Right now is the time for our city leaders soliciting budget input on budget items. And I think it would be good for us as individuals and as a board to try to help elevate that in our council members' priorities. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. I read, I know you sent that article around, I read it, so it's a tragedy. Very sad, very sad. Nicole, you're next.
Thanks, Fred, and thank you, Matt, for bringing that up. It is definitely a tragedy, and 2 pedestrians lost, their lives. So, Vision Zero, for any of you new board members, and perhaps, Fred, we could get an agenda item to talk about Vision Zero, which is a overarching goal from the city of San Diego to, it's not just city of San Diego, it's international. It came from Sweden, to reduce traffic fatalities to 0. So that is something that perhaps this board needs to know so that we know the goals and the strategies of the city and we can support those efforts moving forward.
I think in the email that Matt sent around, he suggested that the Traffic and Transportation Committee take a look at that and then maybe make some type of recommendation for us to maybe send a letter or do something with it. So, I mean, I think that might be the appropriate way to do it.
And that's great. And I'm okay with supporting some action item through the Transportation Committee, but as an overall board to learn about Vision Zero, it's as important as climate action plan. So if we don't know a climate action plan, we also should have that revised. So those are our 2 arches for our board, and we should have an information item perhaps.
Well, we could do that. So next month, send me those. I'll definitely put those on as information items, and you can explain those to the whole board. So that would be helpful, so that if it ever did come back as an action item, then everybody's up to speed.
Yeah.
And I think it's, part of this is that, people do watch these afterwards after we post them. So it's good for the community. So it'd be good. Those would be good informational items just for the community at large too.
Yeah. Thank you, Fred.
I would agree with Nicole. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that would be a great presentation to the entire board to bring them up to speed on what their intent is and that policy. But as well, I am always supportive of keeping our community safe. So I look forward, Matt, you can bring that as an action item for next month's traffic and transportation meeting. I would be more than happy to try to find solutions to help address that. So thank you for all your work.
Okay, Corla, I see your hand up.
Yes, on a lighter note, the Cabrillo Rec Center held an event last month, and we haven't had any great fun events for a while due to the pandemic, but their Cookies with Santa event was a great success. They had 70+ kids and crafts and activities for about 2 hours. It was a beautiful day outside, and Mandy was there volunteering, and it was just very pleasant and a success, and I'm waiting for photos to share on social media. I posted the checkbook balance in the chat. Everyone can read that. And then also I sent around an email, and I apologize, Eva, apparently I had her email incorrectly listed in my contacts, but the code update, the city is asking for code update suggestions. And if you need that link again, I have that, and we can send information in on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Corla. All right, do we have any more non-agenda public comment? Looks like we're good. All right, we are going to go to government reports. And I think Margaret raises a good point. I mean, and we're definitely committed to this, but we care about our neighbors. And I think that part of what we do is to interact and take care of our neighbors, both in Ocean Beach and in Midway. But we're going to start out tonight, if Kathy is still here, and have Kathy give us a report from Midway, because we hear rumors that there's lots of things going on in Midway. And actually, I go down to Midway all the time, so I can see there are. So tell us what's going on down there, Kathy. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. And thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting us. We're anxious to keep the Peninsula community as well as Ocean Beach involved and interested in what is going on in Midway. So yes, there's a lot going on. I think everybody knows that NAVWAR or the Navy is preparing their plans. As of our meeting yesterday, what we know about the Navy is that we don't know anything yet. We're waiting for them to come back with their responses to the EIR. The Midway Planning Group prepared a multi-page response or commentary to that document. And our primary concerns there are obviously public health and safety, traffic, circulation concerns. We are not envisioning, nor have we ever been envisioning anything of a height that the Navy is envisioning. I mean, they talk about up to 350 feet, which is roughly 35 stories. That we don't believe that has a place in Midway. We're not looking to build another downtown. That is not what the rest of the community is zoned for. So we're doing what we can, but I think everybody needs to understand it is federal property, and therefore there are no height limits, regardless of what the zoning is, regardless of Measure E or Prop D. The federal government will end up doing what the federal government chooses to do. The good news is that the MCRD, which is now has been deemed to be part of the Midway Pacific Highway Community Planning Group, is now actively involved in our planning group. We've had outreach from their liaison person, and they have started attending our meetings. So we know that MCRD is interested in what's going on in the community. MCRD is not going anywhere. They are not planning on getting rid of or selling or significantly changing what's going on there. That kind of leads us to the sports arena. And that process, which, as I think everybody knows, has been challenged in the courts. And well, I'm sorry, the sports arena has not been challenged in the courts. What was challenged in the courts was Measure E, and specifically the views and vistas. It's my understanding that the city is following a double track. One is to appeal the ruling of the Superior Court. The other is to get the environmental impact study done so that and if necessary, an updated election or an updated EIR will be produced, and potentially a new ballot issue. I think everybody also understands that the sports arena will not be redeveloped with a 30-foot height limit, but the sports arena and the 30-foot height limit are two separate issues. One is the sports arena, which won't happen with a 30-foot height limit, and the other is the rest of the community. So that leads me to what's going on in the community. And I'm sure that anybody who has visited Midway or traveled through Midway is very well aware of the unfortunate circumstances that we have occurring in Midway that are doing nothing but getting worse. And that is the direct result of 50 years of limitations and blight. And it's the direct result of the inability of everybody to figure out what to do and to expect someone else to come up with a solution. There was supposed to be some abatement going on this week on the sports arena encampment area. Unfortunately, because of the rain earlier this week and the inclement weather, that was pushed back, and now the notifications have to go out. So we're hoping that some of that will be resolved in the next week or so. Midway has become a dumping ground. As I'm sure you know, if you've been there, we've got the encampments, we've got a huge homeless issue. We have 2 hotels that have been turned into temporary shelters. We have a terrible situation, and it may be made worse in the next few weeks by the county, who has tentative plans that they originally denied, but are now saying are the case, to potentially raise a temporary shelter, a tent shelter in the parking lot of the county mental health facility. So that's just going to bring more issues into the community. So at our meeting yesterday, I mean, there was a lot of angst and a lot of hair pulling, as we always have. And the community's getting really, really tired of being the dumping ground. We are going to be reaching out to our neighbors, not only to Ocean Beach and to Peninsula, but also we've had offers from Old Town and Mission Hills to help us try to bring awareness to what's going on in Midway, because I understand that there is a segment or there are people that do not want Midway to redevelop with beyond a 30-foot height limit. But the reality is it will never move forward, and it should never have been included. So Midway will not become a parkland for the city of San Diego. The Navy is not going to relinquish their property or give it away. Neither is MCRD, and neither is the city of San Diego. So those folks who think that the simple solution is turning the Midway into a park, frankly, it's not realistic, and it's not fair to continue to limit us in that way. We don't ask to make changes in your community. We just ask that you let us redevelop in a safe and managed level that will benefit everyone and our neighbors. So that's basically my update.
All right. DK, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Kathy's done an adequate job of sort of framing up and I think summarizing the sentiments that we have here down in Midway. It's obviously a challenging time. It has been challenging times for some time. I think nonetheless, though, we are resolved. I think we're very much outcome oriented, and we will persevere. So I think Kathy said it all, but we're still here and we're not going anywhere.
And,
Well,
and
Kathy, we're happy to work with you, and I think we have some people that have some questions. I see Mandy's got a question, so go ahead, Mandy.
Sure.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate your time. I was going to ask, I had read that they are converting the old Pier 1 imports into a spot for, I believe, about 50 beds that they converted. That's going to be going up in the area. And my question is, have you had any contact with the new homeless czar that Todd Gloria had hired on to help address these issues? Has he met with your group or you specifically and provided any strategy or new ideas with regards to addressing these issues in your community?
Sure. Well, and thank you for the question, Mandy. That center did open in December.
Mm-hmm.
It will house at capacity approximately 44 beds. It is an effort by a group. It's the city and the county. It is under contract primarily to Alpha Project.
Mm-hmm.
is leading the way. We were updated and advised that there are 13 to 14 residents currently at the site, and that is either on track or ahead of where they expected it to be at this point. Those folks are severely either mentally ill, severely drug addicted, or alcohol addicted persons. Those are not families. Those are not just looking for a place to stay. We're not thrilled to have it in the community, but it's here. We had no choice. It's city property. The city sublet it, and we're waiting to see if it will have any positive impact on the community or the city itself. So that's item number one. As far as the homeless czar in the mayor's office, her name is Hafsa Kaka. She has been on the job since August. I actually had a meeting with her Tuesday for about a half an hour, a Zoom meeting. She was the one that informed me about the probability of the tent going up at CMH. She's the one that updated me on the abatement progress on Sports Arena and several other areas. The mayor, District 2 have both finally decided that there is really an issue in Midway and it needs to be addressed. And my personal position is that while people talk about compassion and we have to be more compassionate, I absolutely agree with that. But I don't think it's compassion. It's compassionate to consider the conditions under which those people live and to tell ourselves that is anything close to being compassionate. So they have promised to work on additional efforts. I think if you attended or heard the mayor's state of the city last week, he talked about a legislative effort to return conservatorships to the state of California, which were eliminated about 50 years ago. And with those conservatorships, there will be more ability to help people that are just simply not able to help themselves. And to help move them into facilities without it being a, well, you don't want to go, so okay, you get to stay on the street. So does that answer your questions?
Oh, it definitely does. And I
Yeah.
agree, there's no dignity in being out on the street and having to endure the issues and being exposed to the elements. So I appreciate you giving us an update on that. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, Kathy. Any other questions for Kathy, Corla?
No,
No?
sorry,
No.
for Kathy.
All right, well, thank you, Kathy. We appreciate you coming and
Thank
yeah,
you for
those are
the
big
invite.
issues.
Okay, thank you. All righty.
All right, and Robert Jackson, I see that you're here, so I'm marking you down as a positive attendee now. So we got 14 out of 15. Good job. All right, Corla, do you have a question about something or?
No, just about when we get to other government reports, we have a representative from D2. Our new person is here. I'd like to allow Mr. Rowan to speak when you're ready.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, happy to be here to introduce myself. As many of you may already know, my predecessor as a liaison to this group, Monique Tello, left our team because she moved to LA. So first order is just to say hello. Angela, your background brings me great joy. That's my hometown. The mountain that I was named after is right behind you. But Monique texted me right before this, even though she's not getting paid anymore from us, to make sure that I let you know that the memo went out on the 6th about the installation of the all-way stop on Cape May and Froude Street. So that got submitted to leadership in the mayor's office and the transportation department. So I don't know if you received a copy, but I can forward it to anybody who is interested in that. So that memo's gone out, and I'll keep you updated on that process. And then, yeah, just, excited to get to know your group. I live very close to Midway, actually. So I'm in your hood. I'm in Point Loma all the time. Director of policy, if I didn't already say, that is my gig, but I'll be liaising for Point Loma, and I've been liaising for Midway. So I'm already in another meeting. I'm doing the Mrs. Doubtfire thing between two computers. So I'll take a question, or when we're wrapped, I'm sorry, but I can't stay for the rest of the meeting. Hopefully in the future, I'll be able to.
I want to make sure that we have your email contact information.
Sure, I'll drop that in the chat.
Yeah, make sure that everybody gets that. I think that Nicole has a question for you.
Yeah, real quick, Makana, thank you for being here. And I know you're in another meeting, but I just wanted to address what we kind of commented on, the tragic fatalities on Nimitz. And Councilmember Campbell did tweet today about it. I do think that, because I think it's important for our leaders to recognize these tragedies. So I thank her for that. And then she put, as it is a priority of mine for upcoming budget, as we must do more about the epidemic of residents killed by cars across our city. I couldn't agree more. I would love to chat with your office about what those ideas of what kind of money we're putting in a budget and what ideas are coming from that. So just your background, for your sake, I sit on the City of San Diego Mobility Board. Yes. And I do chair a Vision Zero subcommittee. And I've worked with the city since they adopted Vision Zero 7 years ago. So I'm very passionate about it. And, I'd love to know what, maybe you have an answer, but is there a budget money dollar that can solve our problems of speeding cars? Because I'd love to know the answers.
Yeah, I am not the budget lead for our office, but shoot me an email, and you don't need to repeat yourself everything you just said. Just a quick email so that I have your info, and I can loop in Teddy, my colleague who's in charge of our budget, and discuss what aspects of Vision Zero are written into our budget request. Happy to have that conversation with you.
Thank you,
and thank you for the work you do. Yeah, Vision Zero is really important. I agree.
And Makana, I'm just going to say on behalf of Don and Mandy as our sort of parks lead people, we've been working with Monique for a while trying to get the pocket park going down on Cannon Street and get some funding for that. So
okay,
I would imagine they'll be following up with you. It's a project that Don's worked on for I'll say 7 years, but it's probably been 8 years by now. And so we've been making some progress with Monique. So hopefully we can pick that ball up and keep that project going forward.
Yep, absolutely. Let's connect.
Well, welcome on board.
Thank you, and I'm sorry to not stay. I'm actually a member of the other meeting, but I didn't want to set the precedent of not being here with y'all. So we're going to get to our voting section soon. So it was nice to meet you, and I'll see you next time.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. I don't think we have any other government people then. I'm glad we got
let me comment real quick, Fred. I'll interject. I received emails last minute, if you will, from Rachel Granadino, from Chris Ward's office, from Kota Zeiser from the mayor's office, and Cole Reed from Tony Atkins' office. And I forwarded those right as this meeting began to everyone. I haven't had a chance to read them, so everyone can read those on their own. I don't see, it's unfortunate, there's no really community members here, Schwabi's here. So reading them out loud won't serve any purpose but delay the meeting. So
Exactly. So thanks for forwarding, especially now I don't have to do that. So good job, Corla. All right, and usually when I forward it, I mean, if you read something in there and you have questions, right, reach out to those government people, right? Send them an email, contact them, and follow up with them. So, all right, we're going to bread and butter. We have project review. So we have Quantro Street. So Joe, do you want to take it over?
Yeah, thank you, Fred. I'll be very brief, but unfortunately for the Qualtrough Street project, the applicant, Thomas Morley, the architect, could not make tonight's meeting. His mother-in-law fell over and was injured, and he's got more urgent health matters to deal with. So we'll make this presentation on his behalf. I hope it goes fairly smoothly with the board. So again, this project is at 3126 Qualtrough Street, and it's a very interesting project. It's in the houses that are on the steep streets that overlook the bay. And in the back of this house, there were two small structures that were built. One of them was permitted. And what the owner of the house did was they actually combined the two to make a quite nice little ADU. They did it without permits, and somehow the city became aware of it. So they're going through the process to permit this ADU. What's interesting about it is that it is completely shielded. A couple of things, but the first is that it is completely shielded, as far as I can tell, from any views from any public streets anywhere surrounding this property. I drove up, I drove down, I drove all around the area looking for it, and the only thing you can see it from is Google Earth. The second thing that's interesting about it is that this is a large house, as many in this area are, and it actually has 4 parking spaces and a garage plus a driveway. And access to this little ADU is via an improved side yard to the rear of the property. The owner contends that they don't have any interest to rent it out, and it's not the type of area where you would typically see a lot of rentals. I, of course, don't know what they may do, but it's a very large site, and they put this ADU in, and they're trying to make things right now that the city's on to them. With that, Corla, I believe, can share the plans. We coordinated those with her, and I can talk you through a little bit of the architecture of the project. That's good, Corla, right there. If you go down a couple sheets.
So my recollection, I'll interject real quick, is that the owner wants to consolidate these two buildings into one and add the ADU and cure the violation that this was non-permitted. So
that is well stated, yes. Yeah, so there's two little structures, and one of them was a tiny ADU that didn't have a very good floor plan. It was basically a kitchen and a bedroom in one room, and then another small structure and some miscellaneous decks. And they essentially just combine these two structures into one. If you scroll down maybe one more sheet, Corla, we can see the floor plan. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Well, there in the hatch, you can see where the two structures were. They're the hatched, and where the shaded structure is, it's the added section. And you can see that they're not encroaching on their side yard or rear yard setbacks. They're not really doing anything. The house went through a historical designation analysis and was deemed non-historical. This is the front house, and the illustration on the left is the garage. If you keep scrolling down, that's the upstairs of the front house. Keep scrolling down, please. Keep scrolling down. Okay, this is the plan of what they ultimately want to do. The plan above it, if anyone wants to look at it in more depth, was the two separate structures with these peculiar little decks that kind of connected them. This shows what they are doing now, which is a little 2-bedroom, family room, dining room, kitchen, ADU. The total square footage of it is 1,097 square feet. And the existing structures, if anyone's interested, the existing living bedroom, bathroom that was 476 square feet, and the existing studio structure was 304 square feet. And if you want to just scroll up real quickly, Corla, the other way, you can see how those structures sat. Again, there was a little bedroom and a living room and a deck and a couple decks and some little open space, and then this little studio kitchenette ADU sort of thing. I think that they were primarily used by family and guests, but again, I don't know. So with that, board members, do you have any questions we'd like to try to delve into?
Joe, I have a question. Just so I understand correctly, the work for the entire project has already been done, and this is a permit that's basically being retroactively sought, or was part of the work done and we're being asked to permit the work that was done plus any additional work?
That's a great question. So the two little structures apparently were permitted, and they were built quite some time ago. And these miscellaneous decks, I don't think were permitted. I'm not 100% certain on that, but there is a civil notice that is included in this set of drawings where, the city, by whatever means they use, satellites or whatever, detected that it had been connected into one ADU. This permit is to make the entire structure legal, which is like 2/3 existing legal structure and 1/3 of connective work not done legally.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, I had a question. Is this winding up being just one ADU when it's all permitted, et cetera?
Yes, Sam, that's exactly correct. It'll be one ADU. It's basically a little bungalow. It's got 2 bedrooms, a family room, a dining room, a kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. And again, it's just a smidge under 1,100 square feet.
Joe, can I ask you another follow-up question
Of
to
course.
this? And I don't know if you have the answer to that, but from what you can tell looking at the plans now and the work that was previously done, obviously the regulations about ADUs have significantly changed in recent years. Do you think the work or the project that was done, to the extent it was done, would have been permitted at that time? Or did the owner do the work because they were concerned that at that time, given the circumstances and the permitting process, that the city would not have granted the permit for that amount of work?
It's another very good question. Under the current ADU rules, this project would be approved. It's not required to have parking, but it does. And it is within the ADU ordinances as they exist, and it complies easily with height. It's not nearly the 30-foot height limit. It complies easily with the setbacks. And again, you can't even see it from anywhere. So there's no potential that it obstructs public view corridors.
Would it have been approved at the time it was built, do you think? Or what was the reason the owner didn't seek the permit when it was originally built?
Great question, and I don't know the answer. Corla, did you or Brad or Robert kind of glean that from the applicant's explanation to us?
I think maybe it was unintentional. He didn't know any better. That was kind of the impression I got.
Orla, can we get out of the screen share and so I can see everybody? Thank you. Okay.
Robert, that might be right. You never know what exactly was going through someone's mind, but it's kind of like a backyard project, really. It was not particularly a bright idea, but it was not, I don't think he had any malicious intent.
No, and I think as architect, he didn't really want to get too much into it, but I think that's kind of how I understood it.
Yeah, I was disappointed that he wasn't able to join us tonight, but I also understand things do happen, and he was incredibly apologetic. He just said, he actually said, I can get on with the board if you want to try to FaceTime me, but I don't really think we need to go there. I think that the project sort of stands on its own merit. I don't know what other process the city made him go through, but he's having the full plan check. So he's had to justify the existing structure structurally. He's had to justify that they were non-historical. He's had to justify that they were, didn't have any other code violations themselves. So it seems like it kind of seems like it's a funny thing where he actually made a better situation out of the existing situation.
Yeah.
And the
And it
committee
appears that
voted.
it was approved by the project review 6-0. Is that right, Joe?
That is right.
Yeah.
Okay, Margaret, do you have a question?
That was what I was looking for.
Okay.
John's
Don?
there too.
Yeah, I'm a little slow at this, Joe. So Zillow has this property listed as 3,300 square feet, and you've got it about 1,000 feet more. Is Zillow apparently not aware of the unpermitted buildings that already exist?
Don, so they've got, yes, he's got the existing main residence at 3363.
Okay.
And he's got the, again, the two structures, one at 476 and one at 304. I don't know if Zillow accounted for those structures in the rear or not. It sounds from what you're saying like they didn't, but I can't attest to that.
Okay. And so there is work, there is our ADUs or whatever you want to call them that were not permitted. And he's trying to make this right, and he's be doing a little bit of work connecting the two small structures.
I would say it's maybe a little more than a little bit of work. I mean,
Okay.
he's re-roofing and recombining these two structures, but the architect who he retained actually did a very nice job with the floor plan and the cohesion of the two elements together.
So the building, I guess the garage is on a slope, bottom of the slope. But the building looks to be 3 stories. And the decking that you talk about in the description here, is that going to add a new deck?
No, Don, it's not a 3-story structure in any regard. So there's a house that's on a hillside lot. It's a 2-story structure. And then there's this structure, which is in this fairly large backyard. It's again, completely shielded by other properties from any kind of public view. And it's a 1-story structure.
And did they not say he purchased the adjacent property to protect his view?
He did. He's got some pretty deep pockets, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he bought and tore down and is rebuilding a lower house on the downhill adjacent Bayside property, because that's what you got to do.
Okay. All right, so does somebody want to make a motion to approve this project or to move on?
I make a motion to approve.
Just, I think before, can I just, one more
Oh,
comment?
go ahead.
Yeah, of course,
before I
Ava.
make a Motion, I honestly have a little bit of a hard time with this. It seems to be, and this may be a lovely person, but it seems to be kind of a situation of, ask for an apology rather than permission. And I would imagine that someone who now goes to the effort to build this from what you described, really well thought out ADU, I just have a hard time wrapping my head around why didn't he permit or get his ducks in a row when the initial work was done. And I would kind of hate to rubber stamp a project. And what precedent does this set for other members in the community that may be doing work to their house or build rentals or ADUs without going through a proper permitting process in hopes of it just being approved, down the road and being grandfathered in, and well, now the structure is here, so can we
That's a really good question.
I
And I see Brad has his hand up, but before Brad, can I just jump in really quickly? So as an architect, I've been hired by a handful of people who have had code violation, unpermitted construction projects. And it is by no means the sort of situation in the cities or the county or any of the counties where you build something and you think you're going to get off with a hand slap and make it easier. They make you go through exhaustive work more times than not, far more work than it would take to just do it right in the first place. I even have had people tell me you'd be better off tearing it down and starting from scratch just because of the stuff they make you do. I'm talking about x-raying slabs and excavating and boring and coring, and you know, they really kind of throw the book at you. So I don't think he got off easily, but your fundamental question is, why did he do that? And I don't know the answer to that. It was just what was presented to us. And so he's certainly, you know, paying the fees, paying the remedial work, paying for all the technical studies to analyze historical and any other effect of the house, paying an architect. And I don't know this architect, but he seemed to be very competent and a nice guy. So, you know, the architect isn't to blame here, it's the owner.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. Brad, you had been holding your hand up a long time.
Oh, wasn't that long. Regarding unpermitted properties, I mean, yeah, they're, you know, ideally not the thing you're to do. But they are fairly common. And Joe, you hit on a lot of it. My understanding is, isn't it a double penalty to permit something after the fact, in addition to all the coring and stuff like that? That was my understanding, because we used to have people come in and they would give us a presentation in our office when we actually met. And they would, you know, there were people that would specialize with permitting properties after the fact, you know, taking them through and doing them. So I don't know if you were aware of that, or maybe Robert remembers some of those things. But that was my understanding, is that beside all the hoops you got to jump through, there's financial problems also.
Yeah, I remember Ian Scattergood used to specialize in that.
Exactly right. Thank you. Of course, you would remember his name.
Right.
No, thank you.
All right. I think we have to bring this to a close. So I think somebody needs to make a motion, and we either vote it up or vote it down, whatever you guys want to do. But we got to.
I'll make a second.
Who made the original motion?
Brad.
Brad made the motion, Robert second. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the project. All right, I'm gonna do a roll call so that in case anybody wants to vote against it. So Margaret.
No.
Brad. You're yes. Okay, Brad's yes. Sorry, I'm writing.
Yes,
Corla. Corla.
Yes.
Mandy.
Yes.
Eva.
No.
Don.
No.
Robert.
Yes.
Angela.
Yes.
Tina.
Yes.
Nicole.
Yes.
Matt.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Sam.
Yes.
Okay.
What is your
The
tally?
motion passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 3.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. All right, now we're gonna move on to the next one. Everybody should have a copy, and we're also posted on the website, but we have Project Reviews did a very good job and sort of analyzing the ADU situation and preparing a draft letter with recommendations to the city of San Diego. My understanding is, as part of the project review process, that Paul Webb took the laboring order, putting the letter together, and he did a really good job. So even though Paul's not here, I want to publicly acknowledge Paul Webb for doing that. So I think that Joe and Corla are going to present the letter, and we can take a look at it. So
Sure.
whoever wants to go first.
So basically, everybody, La Jolla wrote a similar letter, but they've got slightly different concerns. And some of their concerns are about lowering height and so forth. But Paul did an outstanding job and put together a letter that sort of coalesces things. Corla, I don't think, maybe everyone can just read this rather than us reading it out loud. What do you think?
Agreed. It was emailed to everyone on the board as well, and I just put it up here in case someone wanted to peruse it quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's a good letter, and I think at least Don and Sam have both have gone through the letter carefully and sent me a couple of typographical errors to correct. So if we make it after our discussion, if we make a motion to approve it, part of that should be for me to correct typographical errors that are sent to me, including spelling of my last name.
I'd like to, is there any more discussion? I'd like to make a motion to approve the letter.
I'll second. Motion by Maddie, seconded by Angela. So is there any more discussion?
Yeah.
Okay, Don?
I'd like to second what Fred said. This is an outstanding letter, very concise, well-written, and I commend Paul Webb and the entire committee.
Thank you.
I felt the same.
That's right. I got a message from Angela saying that she really liked the letter. Yeah. Thank you, Angela.
So
any other comments?
Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah, I was going to comment. I like the letter. And the only thing that I guess I would have liked to have added, and I don't know if it's really necessary, but effectively what the council has done here is taken a system that's working very well, the single family unit we have in this city, and they've actually had put a problem on it in order to solve another problem. And I feel it's going to create a lot of congestion, parking issues. Already we're seeing people complaining on Nextdoor about sideswipe cars and other issues with cars parking illegally. So from that standpoint, I really support it, but if there's any way to further strengthen the fact that I think they made a fundamental error, I would love to have any inputs that anybody would like in that regard.
And Sam, that's extremely true. And everyone that I speak with at every city is trying to figure out how they're going to address not only the ADU current policies, but the way they're affected by the current Senate bills, which were just recently passed. And the genie is kind of out of the bottle, and the effects don't seem too bad right now, but in 5 years, 10 years, it's going to completely change the character of a lot of neighborhoods.
Matt, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I understand some of the concerns in here about looking at things like setbacks and trees, but I don't understand why we would necessarily want to include anything about the number of the units, because it seems to me like the density of units, part of the concern was in dealing with things like setbacks and trees. And if we're dealing with those, I don't know why that would necessarily necessitate talking about altering the number of units.
Fred, do you want me to answer that, or do you want to have
Joe.
Mandy ask her question?
Go ahead, you can answer that, Joe.
So it appears as though, especially from some of the handouts that we've received and which have been distributed, that people have already found loopholes in the ADU ordinances, wherein they can put quite a number of ADUs or tiny houses or other classifications of structures on single family lots. There was one case where there were 17 abodes on one single family lot, both through the process of ADUs, supplemental ADUs, junior ADUs, tiny houses, and things like that. So what we're going to see, and it'll probably be more in places like the college area, but you're going to see people who buy a single family house, keep that residence, and use that as a basis by which they can add multiple structures and essentially cover lots.
And I would add on top of that, there is no additional parking required for all those movable structures. And this is where we're going to create total congestion in certain community areas.
That's exactly correct. The parking was the limiter because there's only so many feet of street frontage or no alley access or limited alley access off which you can park. But if you eliminate the parking from the equation, it opens up basically the entirety of the site. Mandy, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah, I think again, just like what you had stated, again, the amount of ADUs that can be placed on these lots without the requirement for parking is of concern. Again, just the influx of people into these neighborhoods. I think that's what it's speaking to as well, because we've seen property owners take full advantage of the lot space in their backyards. And you know, while they're trying to create housing, unfortunately, it's not going to increase the affordability portion of ADUs because there's no requirement by the state to make those affordable. So I just think it's really unfortunate that the American dream of having a single family zone, you know, a single family home is, you know, being placed in the backyard of someone else's home. And so that's where the American dream of California home ownership has come. And so I'd like to see some changes to better reflect what the state has with regards to their ADU regulation. The way I've heard this regulation for San Diego described is the ADU regulation by the state on steroids. And so I appreciate the letter and I'm in full support of it. Thank you, Joe, for your work.
Margaret, did you have a question?
Not so much a question, but an observation of what I've been seeing in Point Loma, especially in my neighborhood, which is near Point Loma High School. I'm seeing cranes drop these 88 units into people's backyards, dropping it like it's hot overnight. So, I mean, I don't know if any of you guys are noticing that in Point Loma. These units, there's certain companies, a couple of them actually, that are dropping the actual units in people's backyards and they're Airbnb-ing them. Got neighbors that I've talked to and they're making a killing right now with these units. So I really don't, it's happening. And I don't really think the regulations that anybody's trying, the planning board groups are trying to implement in place is going to help or work. Not so far in our community.
Are you saying they're craning them in or actually just building them in?
Oh no, craning these units in, they're like apartment home, trailer home pieces. I've seen about 4 in 2021 just get dropped in to backyards and they're able to rent them. And so no building really, just dropping these units onto properties without permit.
Got to be a tiny house on wheels or something, or some kind of.
No, it's not. That's totally different. It's not tiny homes on wheels at all. It's an actual granny flat that's getting dropped right into the backyard. Super simple and easy. They don't need permits for it, and boom, yada yada, you're done. I've seen about 4 of those go in recently in the Point Loma area of Point Loma High.
Okay.
Like a prefab almost. But what about when it gets down to utilities and hookups? Would the city have to participate?
These things, man, these things have everything in them, like a living room, a bedroom, a bathroom. I've seen neighbors on Facebook do a full video to promote this business that's dropping them in to the backyards. And it's basically a granny flat, exact granny flat, without having to build anything and obtain permits for. They're bypassing all that.
They've got to be on wheels or something.
They're not on wheels. They're flat. I don't see wheel. Of course not. They're not going to bring it to project review. They're hello.
Well, the city actually wants their sewer fees and their water fees and things like that. So.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
But there's no wheels.
I do. I just like to say the intent of all this stuff, I think, is to bring San Diego more in line with what the state is requiring. San Diego went way over the top and like Mandy said, on steroids. And then my other comment is, if this gets approved, I don't know if it'll do any good, but I'd like for us to send this in as part of the code updates section, that we could include our letter and submit it in that, on that website for the code updates, and maybe somebody will take notice of it in that area as well. So those are just my suggestions, and I fully support this letter. We've got to get a position going. This is all happening now, and if we don't take some kind of position, it'll be too late.
Yeah, well, after I finalize and send the letter, we'll obviously post it, but I'll send you a copy too, and feel free to send it to the code people too. I think that I saw Matt's hand was been up for a while. So Matt, did you have further comment?
Yeah, I mean, so talking about this in terms of, like going above and beyond the state requirements, San Diego does have less housing. Like it's a more impacted housing problem in San Diego than in other major metropolitan areas in California. So if we want to try to address problems like the housing crisis to meet them, kind of more at a community level, I think San Diego is playing catch up compared to some of these other cities. So in that reason, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to go above and beyond. And I think if we're addressing concerns like the space between the units through things like setbacks and the amount of greenery, like I think it's a serious problem when, Joe brings up that we could end up with like whole lots developed. But there's ways to offset some of the carbon footprint that you're setting in there through things like green roofs. I think there might be ways that we could see this work within the community without having to target it explicitly and saying like, let's bring the number of ADUs back down, because I don't think that's actually one of the critical problems in the way that this is structured right now.
Matt, it's theoretically possible, but I've never seen anyone even come close to thinking about carbon offset footprint with green roofs and things like that on these little structures. They already cost hundreds of dollars a foot because the building area is so small.
Sure.
So then you throw a green roof on it for an extra $50,000 and it suddenly becomes something where I just don't think we're going to see it be done.
And my sense of the discussion is that people are concerned with the numbers of units because it really changes the character of the neighborhood. But Nicole, did you have a comment?
Well, I want to interject real quick. There's a discrepancy in those numbers as far as San Diego. Matt's certainly, I think, better educated than I, but there's always been a discrepancy. And I believe San Diego is better on target than what some of our leaders want us to believe as far as our housing goals. I think our numbers are higher than they give us credit for.
Okay, all right, Nicole.
Fred, is there a motion?
I think there was a motion. Yes, there was a motion and there was a second. So I'm trying to remember who made the motion. Who made the motion? Mandy made the motion, and I think that who seconded it? Angela?
Angela did.
And Angela did. Okay. So are we ready to vote, or do we want to have further discussion?
A couple of people have been trying to ask some questions. I think Sam and Mandy.
Okay.
I just wanted to make one further observation as opposed to a question. There is currently a proliferation of corporate ownership of single-family homes, and I just want people to focus on what corporations could do with this kind of ordinance that we have for the city, and how they could really abuse it and think about whether there's going to be further complications just because of the corporate type of greed that could be imposed on single family housing.
Okay. All right, Nicole, you've had your hand up for a long time.
I did have a question for Joe. Joe, how does this affect FAR? Do we still have to follow FAR?
I don't even know what the final resolution on that is going to be. A standard single ADU is governed by FAR, but as Sam and others have pointed out, the state's new legislation is sort of the wild, wild west again. They've just said, here, you can do just about anything you want.
So in my opinion, I'd rather address FAR rather than number of units. So I personally believe that there's plenty of opportunities for people to create smaller places for people to live. And there are plenty of people that actually don't need a whole big lot of space. So before I get into, I'm just going to comment, and you don't have to answer too many questions, but that's okay. That's okay. I got my.
Well, Nicole, often, occasionally we see houses that have basically matched maxed out their FAR. But it's the exception, it's not the norm.
Well, but-
Normally, you can put a lot of house on a single family lot. And I do think that the quantity does matter, because if
Yes.
there's 6 different families living there, there's going to be 6 or 8 cars that are there, and they're going to be parked all up and down everyone's streets.
So I
So
respect that.
there are other impacts.
There
than it-
are plenty of single family homes that have more than 5, 6 bedrooms that can have 6 residences with 6 cars. We see that in the college area. So it's not we're not totally like taking away, but I mean, cars and cars and cars. Like, let's take those out of the picture for just a moment, because honestly, like, we're gonna have to live without them if we want to save our planet. So like, let's just like, let's not use those as our reasoning for doing this. Like, let's really take in a hard look of where we're at. And there are people that are dropping them in. I know one up the street, they're using it as an office. I know one, they're using it for their child, because guess what? Their child cannot afford to live anywhere else in San Diego.
Oh, sure. There's lots
We
of other
cannot-
reasons.
I understand there are some things. I will say that I can agree with some of these things like setbacks and trees, but when we talk about number of units, I mean, there's some great community housing projects that is actually a community-based, supportive, wonderful environment for everybody who lives there. So they use they car share, and I mean, you can see these models up in San Francisco. So, you know, we have to be considerate of the space that we live in and how lucky we all are.
All right, Don, do you have a comment?
I have a suggestion. This is really a hot button issue. It was brought to us by the state. It's not fully understood. Senator Atkins was a prime proponent of this. I wonder if the chair would be inclined to at least invite Senator Atkins to make a presentation as to the state's thinking and whether they've seen problems that are rising that might warrant changes.
I'm happy to invite her or her office representative to come, but
They were invited and they sent a report.
yeah.
I have a few things. I'd like to see it as the units, because the way that the FAR does change based on if you have maximized your FAR, there is an exception that you can add 1 ADU if you have maxed out your FAR. But again, back to the original letter, I would like Florida area ratio, Matt, and then Joe is right with the amount of units that creates the risk that those units being occupied with people with vehicles and it causing an issue with parking and an influx of people that cannot be supported with the existing neighborhoods. Back to Matt's conversation about the greenscaping, I work with several women on the San Diego Urban Forestry Board, and all that is, the greenscaping, that is just called old-fashioned greenwashing. There is no real environmental impact that is of substance that can happen with the green roofs. And I don't know of anyone on the Urban Forestry Board that is willing to even put a tree or any plant on a rooftop with regards to our current climate here. There's a lot of risk that comes with those type of rooftops, and you're not going to meet our environmental goals with succulents or green roofs of any nature. So I would like to just point out that that concern. And again, you know, with Nicole, you know, again, these hypotheticals that you're providing, yes, we do need to meet those goals, but in the meantime, we're still having to work with the current issues of people driving in cars at this point. So you know, being that we don't have alternate methods of transportation that a mass majority of our public are utilizing, we do still need to take in consideration the impact to street parking in our neighborhoods. So thank you for your comments. That's
And
all
I think,
have.
I mean, my view is that the letters, it's an important step forward and it gets the conversation going. And then we can use the letter as a leverage to invite Tony Atkins and invite other people and talk about it. But so with that, I think it is time to vote. So I will call roll call. So to make sure everybody goes on record. So I'm going to start. Margaret.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Brad. Brad. Yes. Okay. Corla.
Yes.
Mandy.
Yes.
Eva,
Yes.
Don,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
Angela,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Nicole,
No.
Matt,
No.
Joe,
Yes.
Sam.
yes,
Okay, there we go. We have a, what is it? 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 to 2. 12 to 2. Motion passes and the letter is approved by a vote of 12 to 2. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're making good progress here. So the next issue, and I assume that most people have been generally following it, but I put this on as an informational item where we can have Corla walk us through what's going on with the CPC and the changes that are happening potentially to planning groups across the city and some of the options that might be coming up, and throw that out for a little bit of this practice. So Corla, do you want to lead that discussion, please?
Well, the planning commission met today and I unfortunately missed, they changed the agenda a little bit and I missed some of it. But they voted unanimously today on changes to the municipal code, not on council policy. So we're not dead in the water yet. Planning groups are not dead in the water yet. We still have the opportunity and the chance to form the new council policy. And exactly, I was hoping Paul would be here or DK was at that meeting this morning to explain that better about the difference between exactly what they were talking about municipal code as opposed to council policy. But what's listed on the agenda are some items that CPC subcommittee on planning groups has been working with. And you know, there's going to be a lot of changes and a lot of things are happening and coming up with planning groups that they have determined that we're not in compliance with the city charter. And so Councilmember LaCava has been working and making changes and proposals on how to get planning groups to move forward. Many of the items they want to do and restrictions they want to impose on us will make it virtually impossible for many planning groups to even exist. They're taking away our stipend. They're no longer going to support us via the city website. And many of these planning groups, there's like 42 planning groups in the city, rely on the city website. We're fortunate we have a webmaster who basically charges us nothing to maintain our website, which I think is outstanding. But they're getting rid of that. And there's so many things. We're gonna have to come up with our own set of guidelines and rules. Yeah, there's just so much, and it's all still in progress and all still in the works. So these four things that Fred listed on the agenda are some things that the subcommittee has come up with. The CPC is meeting Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, and I think I forwarded the agenda to you guys. If not, please nudge me with an email and I will forward that. And I think, you know, the best thing is really to attend that and see what they're coming up with and how they suggest we're going to be able to move forward. But it's going to be in council policy and how we're going to govern ourselves and pretty much be on our own. So yeah.
So Corla, I mean, it seems like this is all being driven by some kind of analysis that the planning groups are, you know, in conflict with the city charter. And I see number 3 is work towards an amendment to the city charter that essentially fixes the issues. I mean, why? That seems like a simple idea to me. Why can't we do that?
It does to me, but it doesn't get any traction in these meetings. And I don't think Councilmember LaCava is interested in doing that. And to me, that seems like the easiest, quickest thing. That wasn't discussed in today's meeting, again, because they were talking about municipal code and not council policy. That would be what I would advocate for. And it may be what this group would want me to advocate for, and what opinion that we would take at the CPC meeting coming up on Tuesday. But that seems to me to be the better way. We would take at the CPC meeting coming up on Tuesday, but that's
Join the meeting.
Okay.
that was weird.
That was weird. Mandy, do you have a comment?
No, I agree with Corla's comments. I've been in these meetings. I did join this morning's meeting. I had to drop off before. I wasn't able to hear what they had voted on. But really what I'm seeing is this was initiated by Scott Sherman to bring reform to, promote, inclusivity, to remove any obstacles for renters, people of color, minorities to participate in the process based on what came back on the demographics of what consists of our community planning groups. Like Fred said, all we need is one council member to have the courage to stand up and amend the city charter and remarry the community planning groups and lift them up and legitimize them. While this was the intent to make them more diverse, personally, in our community board, I speak for this board with regards to, we're here in Point Loma, we're in one of the most affluent areas. I know that we have several renters on this board, and we also have people who are not all white on this board. And I feel like this is just an easy way for the city to disenfranchise our voting body of community members, even before. I mean, right now we're currently indemnified, we're still receiving the support, but we all see time and time again, they don't listen to us. And we deserve better with that. And what's shocking to me is that, again, this is done in the form of creating equity or creating participation. But how can that be done if you're actively diminishing the impact that community planning groups are able to have in their communities? Our communities planning groups, one, we're volunteers, but two, we have a real handle of what's going on in our neighborhoods and in our communities. And I feel that we have a better understanding of that, and we can provide better inputs than any city staff member, consult, anyone on the city staff, or elected representation for that matter. And so I really just see this as an opportunity to create another obstacle for the community to get involved and to let the city know how they feel. And I'd like to see one council member stand up and have the courage to amend the city charter and legitimize us and allow us to continue on to serve the community. And I'm totally for reform and making sure that everyone has a seat at the table and making sure that people remove any obstacles. But a lot of the issues that they were asking to have removed to increase participation, for example, was removing the meeting requirements. Some renters felt like they weren't able to participate, and I challenge that. I've had over the redistricting process, we've heard people say that they can't go to their CPG, whether they're college students or they're renters. And to me, we've seen even in this last few years, I thought naively that, hey, Zoom in the pandemic was going to increase the participation and remove the obstacles of the community trying to participate and get in these meetings. And we haven't seen that. And so I'm tired of these excuses from people saying that, oh, because I'm a renter, I'm not able to participate in my community. That's not true. And that's an excuse to me. Again, I'll leave it at this, but I really see this as the city just disenfranchising the community from the process. And it's unfortunate, and I don't agree with it. Thank
I'll
you.
quickly interject here. I think there are some planning groups who deliberately do try to exclude people. I was appalled at some of the comments I heard today. And I think we've got the best planning group in the city. We're inclusive, I mean, it seems to me that we're doing everything right and getting punished. I will say that the majority of the projects and everything else that we see, everything's ministerial now anyway. And a lot of these projects that we're seeing, they don't have to come before the board any longer. So the city's already made everything ministerial. So we've lost a voice in that respect as well. So.
Yeah. All right, Margaret.
I guess it's really important to say, and I mentioned this yesterday at Midway, I've been attending these meetings as well for about 2 years prior, a long time ago, when our board, actually our board is not perfect. We've had many issues in the past. And I think what I got when they first started having conversations about these changes was that they just don't have enough staff, enough people to babysit these planning boards. There's 40 something planning boards that they all have issues. I'm sorry, Corla, I have to disagree. There's not a perfect planning board. Every planning board has issues. And who do we go to? Poor Tony Kempton for a lot of these issues. He's one person. And, you know, a lot of times what I got with the original meetings when I knew these changes were going to come was because of that. The city basically in the original meetings was stating that we should be going by our bylaws, not Robert's rules, not the Brown Act, our bylaws that we personally create and bless for each planning board group. A couple meetings that I went to and a couple planning board meetings outside of Point Loma, everyone's got different bylaws according to where they live and what their needs are for their community, coastal versus business, business versus what have you. Every group has their own bylaws, their own mission statements, their own rules and regulations. It just becomes too much for the city to, again, babysit. So I think a lot of these new reforms and propositions and the city pushing back saying, hey, you know, we no longer want to be involved. I think that's where it's stemming from. There's just too many groups, too many developments, too many issues, too many things going on to where it just becomes too much to handle. So I kind of agree that each planning board should kind of be the decision makers. They should be the ones after all, we have executive board members on each planning board that should be able to handle those issues and not cry for help every time there's an issue to the city. That's my 2 cents in what I got out of the last 2 years in regards to this conversation.
Yeah, and I just my comment is that, I mean, one of the things they want to do, although we can't meet in person, is not allow us to have public meeting space. So if we don't have public meeting space, that would hurt us. They don't give us any money, we'll run out of money. And if they don't give us legal protection for serving on the board, then people aren't going to serve. And so, I mean, one of the things about the planning boards is, I think the city adopted in the mid 1970s, you know, policy 624. And since that time, literally thousands of people have volunteered just like us all across the city. And people, right, these are people that live in the community, volunteer for free. And just like our conversations tonight about ADUs and about the project we discussed, people who live in the community, that know the community the best, that can comment and try to make a difference. So I mean, it seems like we don't want to see that process destroyed. So it's my 2 cents.
Would this board be supportive of my discussion at CPC on Tuesday to support number 3 on our agenda towards amending the city charter? Would that kind of be a consensus here? I don't know if we need a motion or anything, but you know, I just like some direction on how everybody's feeling about all this.
Corla, did you share any of the draft wordage for what that might look like?
I forwarded all the subcommittee notes to everyone, all the reviews of the subcommittee meetings I forward to everyone.
Yeah, and thank you for that. But I mean specifically with regard to number 3, do you recall offhand if that's like explicitly spelled out somewhere I could quickly check?
No, that was just one suggestion. That's all that came down so far.
Okay, because yeah, in principle, I'm supportive of that. I'm just curious what it would look like. So
yeah, exactly. I think everyone, nobody's hammered all of that out yet because we're not exactly sure where this is going. And just as a matter of clarification, we will, in the new rules, if it goes as it's written, as it's presented, we will still be indemnified. But at any public meeting place, we will have no insurance. So we're not indemnified. Like if somebody fell and got hurt at one of our meetings, we're not indemnified. And also, if any of the members violate the Brown Act, we're not indemnified for that as well. So there's some serious issues in protecting ourselves individually that will have serious impact depending on how this shakes out.
Yeah, it's an informational item. So Corla, I don't think we can take a vote on it. But I think, and I'll just give my sense of the group is that I think, I mean, I don't know. I think that the group thinks the planning boards are important, and obviously an amendment is a good way to go. But, you know, we want to do, my sense is that we want to see what the choices are, get more information, and make our position known that we think planning boards provide a valuable service to all the communities across San Diego, and we'd like to see that preserved as well as it could be.
Agreed. Thank you. Yeah, I think we do valuable work, and you know, nobody's perfect, but you know, there's countless hours, volunteer hours across the city of people trying to do the same kind of things that we're trying to do, and just make our communities better places to live. So.
All right. Well, that'll give you some guidance, but please keep us posted, and it'll be an issue that keeps coming up. So I wanted to make sure that everybody on the board knew about that. So I'm going to move to our last agenda item, which is the March election. So yeah, middle of March will be here before we know it. So I think now's the time for us to start to talk about what we're going to do, our election. I think we need to appoint probably an election committee, and we need to talk about what procedures we want to use. My general thought is that it's COVID. It's still COVID. It was COVID last year. So most likely, at least I would start off by saying, I would think we should strongly consider using the same procedures that we used for the last election, which were a combination of a mail-in and a drive-by drop off your ballot. But I'm going to turn it over to Margaret, who is our first vice chair, and she's in charge of elections, and she can tell us what we did before and sort of lead the discussion.
Okay, first and foremost, call David Dick ASAP.
I don't think David's going to come back though.
And Paul and Brad. I tell you, that was a real crazy, tiring experience. It was very manual. It took us 2 days. Yeah, that's the same system we should run, definitely.
Would there be an opportunity, being that we are still doing, you know, keeping a distance from everyone, is there still a possibility for us to do it online this time?
Well,
I know that
I would, Mandy, recommend that, because we did run into some issues last year with, and I'll be honest, we did run into issues with bulk votes going into the mail, lots of the same penmanship. You know, it looked like multiple people filled out the same exact form.
And wasn't there an issue
20-30 times?
Oh, wow.
And we were not able to verify driver's license with that people. So someone could literally open up a phone book, take all the Point Loma addresses, name, and just do a fake signature. We didn't verify driver's license or anything like that, and then put them in the mail and you're done. So we really didn't like that part of doing it via mail. There's no accountability that it is an actual valid ballot and vote. As to where when you do it in person, you verify the person's driver's license, you make sure that it's legit, legal, and it's the person voting. It was really just a weird, time-consuming, I don't know, it was 2 days. It was tiring. I don't think I'd want to do it again. It was just.
Well, I remember another issue being that people were coming with their spouse's ballot and they were being denied that ballot to be used as well. And so we need to be very clear that if they are bringing that ballot, that they need to be there as well, because that
I know that we took really good cautious measures in putting those ballots to the side. I can't remember if we counted them or not. I don't think we did. I don't think we did if it was a second ballot, and it people grew really upset when they were dropping them off in the parking lot because of the whole COVID thing. We had a lot of elderly voters in our community and their husband or wife or whatever reason couldn't make it. They couldn't leave the house for health, reasons, which rightfully so, we have to respect. But yeah, we couldn't accept multiple ballots that way, which was pretty interesting as well.
How do we verify their address last time? Did they have to handwrite it into the ballot, or was
Yes.
it just they hand delivered it and then?
Well, you could hand deliver it that day, and then you were able to mail it ahead of time too.
Okay.
Wasn't there a verification form and a ballot?
Yeah.
Yes, Brad, I believe so. Yes. Brad helped with that and he can elaborate a little bit more. Brad and I actually checked the mailbox together. So there was always two of us. There was never one person that did it by themselves. And, Brad and I pretty much did that whole entire process with opening up the ballots together, counting them together. It was a real unified process. I love that part. I worked really well with Paul Grimes, Brad. It was Jim Hare as well, actually. And then David led the charge. He was amazing at it because he did the whole online thing, and we did everything together. So there was no cheating on that aspect of things. We literally scoured through every single ballot, which majority of ballots were mailed in. There was a lot of mailed ballots. But again, the most concerning part is we had to look at signatures and compare piles of signatures that looked very similar. Penmanship looked very similar. That to me was just kind of sketchy.
Now, Margaret, I know David kept on saying that he was going to cross-reference addresses to try to connect.
We didn't do any of that.
But I don't think you guys would have the time to do that.
We don't have time. No, there was so many. People came out, they showed up, they voted. You know how Point Loma is. People care about their elected leaders, and there was just way too many ballots. Literally, we were there for hours.
Couple of comments. Last election, I'm sorry, guys, you had your hands up before me. Go ahead.
Margaret, wouldn't it be helpful if we had multiple days that people could drop off their ballots?
I wouldn't encourage that at all, just because there's a tight timeline. And again, we are limited with who can be on the committee and who can count. And it's just, I wouldn't make those changes. No. But I have to be fair and ask you why you would recommend maybe having multiple days. Do you have a good reason for it?
Only because if you were concerned about the mail-in ballots and possibly forgery that way, if you had a few days where people could come, then, and if you had enough volunteers to be able to check IDs as they dropped off the ballot, just like they did at voting for, the presidential election, et cetera, where you had multiple days where people could go. And
our bylaws have one day.
That's actually, I think Angela's idea is a pretty good idea, and having that maybe in lieu of mail-in ballots. So you take out that element of, not knowing who mailed those. Are they duplicates? I don't think it's a bad idea, Angela.
I like it. And I knew you had a reason. That's why I asked you, Angela.
I also concur with her. At the same point, though, there's some issues that I don't believe that we should, if we're going to allow mail-in ballots, why are we turning away somebody who's going to bring their spouses or their girlfriends or their husband?
I know Jim had a really good reason for it in our committee. I'm not going to single out Jim, but our committee in general had a good reason for it. And
if I could just finish really quick, if we're going to allow people to mail it in, we're not going to allow them to drop off their spouses that's at work, who's literally working till 6:30, or they're in traffic and they can't drop it off, but you're going to allow somebody to mail it in. So we got to make something. For instance, even at the electoral votes of, our district, and like what Angela's bringing up, we're allowed to drop somebody's off as long as they sign it saying that I'm dropping this off, for Margaret's dropping Tina's off or whatever. we're allowed to sign that and it's legal and it's, you know.
Well, one of the issues is we have bylaws about how these elections are conducted, and it's pretty specific, and I don't know what the process would be to amend it. We also had, because in a physical election that Margaret and I have done a couple of times, where we sit there in the lobby and people come in and they got to show their ID and then they got to fill out their ballot and they're in person. So the single ballot, single envelope was the best compromise they could do, because we're in COVID and people were very reluctant to want to have that interaction where you actually touch somebody's ID and to verify it. And the idea of, we're all trying to figure this thing out, but how do you conduct who sets up the system for, as Mandy suggested, for doing this online? I mean, that.
And the library was closed last year.
Right, that too, and we had to do it out in front, right?
So.
Well, the OB
Yeah, we
Town
did it in the
Council,
parking lot,
Right.
So let me just say on that, yeah, we tried to replicate a real election, and in the real election, right, people have to come to the library, they have to show their ID, and they only can vote for themselves. The
Right,
bylaws
right.
are straightforward, that there are no proxies, so you cannot bring in a ballot for anybody else. So
Right,
the
that was the
rules
idea.
were relaxed last time because of COVID, so that we could have full participation. And so the question is what we want to do. Do we want to have fuller participation because we're concerned about COVID, or do we want to just say, hey, come between 4 and 8 on this date and drop off your ballot and show us your ID? So go ahead, Margaret, Mandy. Mandy.
Can we just have everyone raise their hand, because we're talking over each other, and Don has had his hand up for a very long time. So I'd like to have Don speak.
sure.
He's actually raising his hand.
oh, I don't even see him. All right, go ahead, Don.
I think we're facing the same issue as last year, COVID. The city declared a state of emergency, and that allowed us to relax or adopt our own procedures. I would recommend the same process as last year, but a former board member was overly zealous and turned people away because a couple had sent one person to drop off 2 ballots. By actual count, 28 ballots were turned away on the parking lot. And that's incongruous when somebody could have dropped off 2 in the mailboxes express. So with a little understanding there, I think we could do the same thing.
Okay, and I'll respond to you, Don. I just want to be clear that we took all ballots into our hands. And at one point, we're telling people they were separated in the parking lot and put into a separate bucket. I was there the entire time. And we honestly, I didn't know how to react or what to do, because we hadn't discussed that as a committee or a board. This was our first time doing this COVID election. So please keep in mind that, I mean, that was a big issue that we had, and we hadn't addressed it. So we had to act quickly on what to do. I will state again that it was sad to see people walk away very upset, cursing, not being able to cast their votes. And we just didn't know how to address those ballots.
I seem to recall, sorry, Margaret. I seem to recall that they were actually used in the vote count. I believe I remember David saying that specifically, that they went ahead and included them due to that big box, I guess, that came in with multiple ballots that had been received at the mailbox. One thought too is maybe being that the bylaws say 1 day, is there an opportunity to expand the voting opportunity to extend the hours instead of from 4 to 8? Maybe, increase those hours from 12 to 8 or all day, perhaps, if we can get enough volunteers to man that and have more volunteers to vet those.
I think that's a
Let
burden.
me, Carla, hold on a second. Let me just answer her really quickly, and then you can speak if you don't mind. We tossed that around, and I've got to say, Mandy, I'll be honest with you, the majority of ballots did not come through the parking lot. I'll be honest with you. The bulk, about 70% of ballots were mailed. And we can, go ahead and discuss extending, but just remember a couple things. I'm sure we don't know actually if the library is going to be open again. COVID's worsening. It gets dark pretty quickly. We were actually going into dark zone, and at the end of that last hour, not very many cars showed up at all. It was like the first hour, Brad, just like normal in-person election, we get that crazy rush. People want to put their ballots in the first hour and a half. That's what happened with that drive-through. So just keep in mind, if you want to have the mail-in ballot opportunity, that we're going to have to address that same issue again of the hundreds of votes that come in. We don't know if the validity of them. And then another thing too is OB Town Council and a couple other planning boards did the online thing and drop off only. They did not allow the mail in ballots. And I think the online thing worked amazing because you have to type in your driver's license. You have to type in all this additional information to become valid, so your ballot counts.
Okay, all that has been discussed ad nauseum. I think we agreed people have to self-certify. We have no way of getting this information. Also, I think if we notice the rules that there is no proxy voting and that it's clear on our website and clear in our election procedures, if I could take care of that. Extending hours is a burden on the committee. The committee has to do all of this. It's not like we can all step up and say, oh, I'll watch the ballot box for an hour, or I'll do this or that. It has to be the committee. So there has to be that chain of command. And she was talking about 2 people picking up the mail and, blah, 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 blah. So those are things to be considered. I think last year it was a huge job and a tremendous burden. Everybody is so thankful for what you guys did. And barring having an in-person election, I think that is our best choice. We just be more upfront about proxy voting, and we just have to allow self-certification. I don't see any other way.
So who is up for election this upcoming year, and who qualifies to be the chair of the election committee from the executive standpoint?
I can tell you now, it's myself, Brad, Corla, Tina, and Eva.
Myself, Brad, and Corla. So that's 3 executive members.
Yes.
And then so Fred, Margaret, Brad, Corla.
Oh wait, time out. Brad, is it you or no?
I'm not on that committee.
No, are you up for re-election?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So those are the 5 individuals up for re-election or election. But one thing I also want to mention as well is our bylaws. We don't have our bylaws set for pandemic elections. FYI, for the record.
But we've got
There's nothing in our bylaws that
we have to
states,
cover the state of emergency.
well, I'm just
I
saying
mean,
for the record.
you got the city attorney messaging the boards that they can set their rules because of the circumstance.
I guess I'll end this so we're not here all night, but everything, I mean, we did the best we could. I think we worked really well. And my only gripe and issue is the mail-in ballots. I didn't feel like that was a fair, valid verification process at all. There was a lot of that. We spent a lot of time going through each single one, comparing signatures, comparing penmanship, comparing the cheating and all. It was just way too much time, hours and hours and hours and hours, till sometimes 2 a.m. So yeah, that's got to be a better process with the mail-in ballots.
Well, and I think also some clarity, even though David thought he was clear about 1 ballot per mail-in envelope. But when you have a household that has couples and stuff, they would just jam it into 1 envelope. And I don't know if that was a problem or not, but I don't think that was abundantly clear.
Yes, correct. That happened a lot, actually.
It was huge.
I think that would be a smart direction to let the community know one ballot per envelope that they're dropping off, just to ensure.
Yeah, that might regulate things a little bit.
I felt like David did an excellent job communicating that. I mean, we did put the guidelines out there. People are not going to listen.
Well, I didn't think it was that clear by reading it, but he disagreed, but the result, people weren't getting it for some reason. But I'll serve on the committee if you like to.
So will I.
Okay.
I'm happy to help.
Well, that's good. I like to see some volunteers. So here's the way it works is that Margaret is the first vice chair is in charge of the election, but she's running. So she's running, so she can't do it. And then Brad would be the second vice chair, so it might fall to him, but he's also up for election. So I'm not sure if he's interested in doing it. So we need an election chair, and then we need people. So I don't know if anybody's interested in volunteering to be the election chair.
I'll volunteer.
Good.
Thank you, Angela.
Wow.
You'll be awesome.
I would not, I can help on that subcommittee. I'll volunteer. I can't be the chair of it though. I just, with my, other issues going on in the community, but I can volunteer.
And I'd be more than happy to send you all the spreadsheets we used. And I would encourage you, Angela, to ask Paul Grimes to join the committee, or even David Dick. I mean, they are amazing and they know the system and they know that whole COVID process, especially Paul Grimes. He helped put the data on spreadsheets for us. And I was so thankful for his volunteer participation. He was a big asset to the election last year.
Great idea.
That's a great idea. Paul's awesome.
Might as well get the same volunteers.
Yeah.
Sorry?
I think Matt has his hand up.
Well, Sam as
I
well.
was going to volunteer to help with the election, but
There we go.
There we go.
Excellent, Sam. You'd be great too.
All right. And how about Matt? Do you have something you wanted to add?
can I make one other comment though?
Go ahead.
For mail-in ballots, why don't we require them to list their driver's license number?
I said that last year to David.
I will not put my driver's license number on a piece of paper and give it to somebody. It's too risky for identity theft. That's why I don't mind showing it to somebody and have a verification, but I don't want my credit card number written down. I don't want my driver's license number written down. There's too much possibility for problems.
Yeah.
And I think it was those privacy reasons is why we didn't
Yes,
do it.
it was.
Well, you had a case, Fred, going on at the same time about that type of thing, right?
Yeah, we could get sued for if we invade people's privacy. So we don't want to get sued.
Right.
All right, I think it's Matt's turn.
Go ahead, Matt.
I just wanted to ask, and apologies if I missed this, but do we have like an estimate for how many human hours it took our volunteers to, both collect and then count and tally everything last time?
5.
And while she's
So
counting
about 18 hours.
Okay, and I mean, was that like 18 start to finish, or 18 when you take, like, say, it's what I mean by human hours is like if you have 4 people volunteering for 4 hours, that's 16 hours.
And it was about 3 days, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and then we also you also have to keep in mind you have to have meetings before. So you're not just showing up to volunteer election day. You have multiple strategic meetings before.
Yeah, because basically we have to come back in February and get approval from the board with what we're wanting to do, correct? So we have to have a meeting before the next meeting. Okay.
Okay, and I guess in terms of trying to like titrate how much I could offer to help, is it possible to like help on, in terms of collecting ballots and or counting without serving on this committee?
Yes.
Of course.
Okay.
Oh, like the day of, that would be very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Right, Brad?
I don't think so. I think you have to be on the committee, and whether you are there, you have to be on the committee to even touch the ballots. And that doesn't mean that you have to be involved the entire process. If you want to be on the committee, Matt, you're on the committee and your job is to collect the ballots, and then you don't have to count, but you have to be a member of the committee to be involved in the process.
Okay,
That's
thanks
true.
for clarifying.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So with that clarification, Matt, do you want to be on the committee?
Do I have to decide right now?
But we're gonna vote, we're gonna
gonna vote.
You do.
I think we need to
Yes,
vote
you
tonight on the
do.
committee, yeah.
Well,
So
and-
that, so the committee can come back, because I think that the committee really needs to look at the procedures from last year, make sure that they're comfortable with the mail-in, or if they don't want to do it, and then make a recommendation that we can approve at the next meeting.
I
And
have
so-
everything. David tasked me to save everything because he knew this year, we'd come up for it again. So I have everything that we used, all the spreadsheets, all the decision-making templates that I can share with the chair of this committee.
Thank you,
Who,
Margaret.
who has the ballot box? Does David still have the ballot box?
So I think it was, yes, David has it. I dropped
It's
it off
not
to him.
stored at the library, that wasn't put back in storage at the library? That
No,
was-
because of COVID, the library was closed. We couldn't get
even
it to
in for
the,
a second?
no. So he has it.
So right now, do we have 3 people on that committee? Because your other logistical problem is having 2 people at a time, always, in any time a ballot is being handled. You want to make sure that you have 2 people, 2 witnesses.
We
Who's on the
have
list
5
so
people
far?
on the committee.
So myself, Robert, Mandy,
Okay.
And then
Sam.
Sam?
And then I would say that Matt should volunteer, and then if he decides he doesn't want to do it, he can resign from the committee.
right, or Matt, we
Yeah.
can give you something that you feel you have time for.
Yeah.
And then-
Okay,
Angela, in parentheses, can you please put Paul Grimes?
Okay, I'll reach out to him.
I
Well,
think we should go ahead and vote for Paul. He was very
Okay.
actively
Yeah,
involved
I'll
last
make,
time,
I'll
so
make
as
a
community
motion
member.
now. I'll make a motion now to first make a motion to elect the chair, which is, I'd like to make a motion to elect Angela Vetter to be the chair of the 2022 PCPB election committee.
I'll
I will
second.
sec-
I got
Sam, I
Robert as the
think-
second.
Oh, Robert.
I don't think we need a roll call. So all those in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
I'm
an aye,
It looks like that's unanimous. Angela, you are the chair. You're the election chair.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you.
It'll be fun. I look forward to the
It's
task.
actually a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. I would like to
Fun.
do I did it twice. So Angela, do you want to make a motion for your committee then?
I'll make a motion for the committee to be Matt, Sam, Robert, Mandy.
And
Paul
Paul
Grimes.
Grimes, and
And
Paul
Paul.
Grimes as a at-large community member.
Okay.
Do we have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Okay, all those in favor?
I'm an aye.
Okay, that looks like that passed unanimously too. Perfect. All right. So my thought, Angela, really is that what we need you to do is, yeah, get the committee together, talk to people, look at the procedures, and then come back and give us your recommendations at the February meeting, and we'll go forward and we'll have a good, healthy election in March. Great
Sounds
job.
like a plan.
Brad, you got a comment?
Yeah, just in case you do mail in, I have the key to the mailbox and I'm the mailbox interface.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for doing that for us. Okay, that's all I've got on the agenda. So does anybody else have anything they want to discuss tonight?
I mean, we're actually going to be out of here in a 2-hour meeting. I can't believe it.
There we go. There we go.
I'm gonna be
And we
signing
discussed
off.
some important issues. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Fred. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brett.
Okay, bye.
Okay.
Did you thank a friend?